Now, continuing with what would come to pass in the Battle of Chancellorsville, take you around the end of April, around this time, in 1863. You had Lee up in the hill with his entrenched army in Fredericksburg, and you had Hooker's men around Chancellorsville. And they're trying to figure out what to do with the situation because they know they're heavily outnumbered. When all of a sudden, General Stuart, who is the Confederate cavalry commander, comes to Lee and Jackson and tells them that the Union right flank is completely up in the air. What that means is the far right-hand side of the Union Army, while they had troops there, they were not entrenched. They were just kind of hanging out in their camps. They were ripe and ready for to be hit. And so General Lee and General Jackson work out a plan immediately to begin taking the majority, all but 10,000 of the men, so 35,000 of the men, and marching them around the flank and coming up and hitting that particular location. Now, Hooker had reports, and he saw Jackson's men moving, but he didn't think anything of it. He thought they were retreating. And so he didn't do anything about it. And so what had happened was you had the 11th Corps, the Union 11th Corps, and I'm talking earlier about differences between the commanders and the men. Now, their commander of the 11th Corps was Oliver Howard. He was a very religious, very pious man. Frowned on drinking and smoking and partying, that sort of thing. And the 11th Corps was made up entirely of German immigrants. And so to basically have a man who was like that over a bunch of men who like to enjoy their free time, that didn't necessarily work well for harmony with the chain of command. And so what had happened is on May the 1st, May the 1st, they actually got in position, and on May the 2nd, 1863, the 11th Corps is sitting there, minding their business, cooking dinner. Next thing you know, a bunch of deer start coming running out of the bushes at them. They don't know what to make of it. And then out of nowhere, they hear the rebel yell. And thousands of Jackson's men go charging straight into the Union lines. They completely smash the Union flank. The whole line caves in. And they're pushing them and pushing them and pushing them. And it finally comes a point where the Union troops could stabilize and form an effective line and withstand the Confederates. But Hooker, not working with his officers and not trusting them, he orders a retreat because he thinks the whole thing is kaput now. So he orders a full retreat across the Rappahannock River at this point. Actually, he hasn't ordered the full retreat yet, but it's actually getting to that point here very soon. More on it to come.